The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the marina's concrete pier. 3 in the morning, and I'm elbow-deep in a busted Yamaha outboard that should have been scrapped 5 years ago. But money's money, and in this faded coastal town, you take what you can get. My phone buzzed against my hip. Text from Jennifer. Emergency at work. Don't wait up. Again. I wiped my hands on an oil-stained rag and squinted at the screen. The 4th emergency this month. Corporate law must be getting more dangerous these days. Another buzz. Different number this time. I'm in the hospital after a mental health crisis because you won't commit. This is your fault, Danny. I stared at the message from Lisa, my girlfriend of 6 months. Hospital? What the hell was she talking about? We'd had dinner 2 nights ago. She seemed fine. More than fine, actually. She'd been pushing hard for me to leave Jennifer, talking about moving in together, making plans I wasn't ready for. The marina creaked around me, old wood settling in the salt air. Seagulls cawed somewhere in the darkness. This whole town felt like it was slowly sinking into the Atlantic, and most days, I felt like I was going down with it. I grabbed my keys and jogged toward my pickup truck. 20 minutes to Mercy General Hospital. 20 minutes to figure out what kind of mess I'd stumbled into. The emergency room was bright and sterile, full of the usual late-night crowd, drunks sobering up, construction workers with suspicious injuries, teenagers who'd made poor choices. The receptionist, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, checked her computer twice. No Lisa Martinez admitted tonight, sir. Are you sure about the name? Positive. She texted me an hour ago. Let me check the psychiatric ward. Her fingers clicked across the keyboard. Nothing there either. Could she have gone to regional medical? I called regional. Nothing. Called 2 more hospitals within 50 miles. Nothing. That's when the pieces started clicking together in ways I didn't like. I pulled up Lisa's location on my phone. We'd shared it months ago during one of those trust-building exercises couples do. The little blue dot wasn't at any hospital. It was at the Oceanview Resort, 20 miles up the coast. The kind of place that charged $300 a night for rooms with champagne service and Egyptian cotton sheets. The kind of place a yacht mechanic's girlfriend shouldn't be able to afford. My truck ate up the coastal highway, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. Pine trees pressed close to the asphalt, and every few miles I caught glimpses of the ocean, black and restless under a clouded sky. The Oceanview Resort sprawled across a bluff overlooking the water, all glass and steel and carefully manicured landscaping. Valet parking, a doorman in a uniform that probably cost more than I made in a week. I parked in the visitor lot and walked through the lobby like I belonged there. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the soft murmur of money-changing hands. A pianist in the corner played something classical and depressing. The elevator carried me to the 7th floor. Lisa's phone signal was coming from room 714. I stood outside the door for a full minute, listening. Voices inside, Lisa's laugh, high and bright, and something else. A man's voice I recognized. Brad Morrison, junior partner at Jennifer's law firm, the guy who'd been to our house for dinner parties, who'd shaken my hand and complimented my grilling skills while apparently planning to steal my girlfriend. I knocked. The voices went quiet. Room service, I called out, pitching my voice higher. Footsteps. The door opened, and there was Lisa, wearing a hotel bathrobe that was definitely not regulation hospital wear. Her face went through about 6 different emotions in 2 seconds. Surprise, guilt, anger, and something that might have been relief. Danny, I can explain. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm sure you can. I pushed past her into the room. Brad was sitting on the bed in boxers and a t-shirt, holding a glass of champagne. The room was nice. Really nice. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the ocean, roses on the nightstand. Hey, Danny. Brad had the decency to look embarrassed. This is awkward. Awkward, I nodded slowly. That's one word for it. Lisa, how's your mental health crisis going? You recovering well from your hospital stay? She wrapped the bathrobe tighter around herself. I was upset. I needed space to think. In a $300 hotel room, with my wife's colleague. Ex-colleague, Brad said. I'm transferring to the Portland office next month. How convenient. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. The champagne, the roses, the two of them looking guilty as sin. Lisa, your parents are driving down from Boston. They should be here in about 3 hours. They're very worried about your mental health crisis. Her face went pale. You didn't call them. I did. They're bringing flowers. Your mom made that casserole you like. Brad stood up, trying to look authoritative in his underwear. Danny, let's be adults about this. Adults. I laughed. It came out harsher than I intended. Adults don't fake medical emergencies to manipulate their boyfriends. Adults don't cheat. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy who fixes boats for a living. I walked to the door, then turned back. Lisa, when your parents get here, make sure you explain how your mental health crisis required champagne and room service. I'm sure they'll understand. The elevator ride down felt like the longest 30 seconds of my life. My hands were shaking, not from anger exactly, but from something else, relief maybe, or the strange satisfaction that comes from finally seeing a situation clearly. I was halfway home when my phone rang. Jennifer. Danny, where are you? Your truck's not in the driveway. Had an emergency call. Mrs. Patterson's boat broke down again. At 4 a.m? Rich people don't keep normal hours. I turned onto our street, past the neat rows of colonial houses with their perfect lawns and their perfect secrets. I'll be home in 5 minutes. Okay. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and sat in my truck outside our house, looking at the windows glowing warm and yellow in the darkness. Jennifer was probably in her home office, working on some case that would make the firm another few million. She worked hard, always had. It was one of the things I'd fallen in love with, back when we were young and broke and thought we could conquer the world together. That was before the promotions and the late nights and the slow drift that happens when two people stop seeing each other clearly. I walked up the front steps, past Jennifer's BMW in the driveway, past the garden she'd planted, but never had time to maintain. The house smelled like coffee and her perfume, expensive and subtle. She was in the kitchen, still in her work clothes, even though it was past 4 a.m. Dark hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose, laptop open on the granite counter. How's Mrs. Patterson's boat? She asked without looking up. Fixed. How's your emergency? Complicated. The Morrison case is turning into a nightmare. Morrison. I kept my face neutral. Brad Morrison? His father's company, patent dispute. Brad's been helping, but he's... She waved a hand dismissively. Not the sharpest tool in the shed. Good thing he's transferring to Portland. When's that happening? Next month, I think. Why? Just curious. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. You've been working a lot of late nights lately. She finally looked up at me. That's what it takes, Danny. You know that. I know. I studied her face, looking for something I couldn't name. Guilt, maybe. Or just the tiredness that came from carrying too many secrets. I'm going to grab a shower and get some sleep. I'll be up in a few minutes. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. She felt familiar and foreign at the same time, like a song you used to know by heart but can't quite remember. Upstairs, I stood under the hot water and tried to make sense of the night. Lisa and Brad, Jennifer working late again, the feeling that I was standing at the center of something I didn't understand yet. My phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Text from an unknown number. Your wife's been cheating on you for months. Check her phone. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then I wrapped a towel around my waist and walked to the bedroom window. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten over the Atlantic. Another day in paradise. Jennifer's phone was charging on her nightstand, face down like always. She was still downstairs, typing away at whatever case was keeping her up all night. I picked up the phone and swiped. It was locked, of course, but I knew her passcode, our daughter's birthday. Some habits die hard. The text messages opened like a door I'd been afraid to walk through for months. Brad. Can't wait to see you tonight. Same place? Jennifer. Danny's working late at the marina. We should have plenty of time. Brad. Good. I hate sneaking around like this. Jennifer. It won't be much longer. Once the divorce is final, we can be open about everything. I scrolled up. Weeks of messages. Months, maybe. Plans and promises and things I didn't want to read, but couldn't stop reading. Jennifer. He's so clueless. I almost feel sorry for him. Brad. Guy's a loser. You deserve better than some grease monkey who peaked in high school. Jennifer. He wasn't always like this, but you're right. I've outgrown him. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode if I moved too fast. My reflection stared back at me from the dresser mirror. 43 years old, graying at the temples, hands that would always smell like motor oil no matter how hard I scrubbed them. A loser, a grease monkey, clueless. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was all of those things. But I was about to become something else entirely. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay in bed next to Jennifer and listened to her breathe, steady and peaceful, like someone with a clear conscience. When the alarm went off at 7, she rolled over and kissed my cheek. Morning, handsome. Morning. I watched her get up and pad to the bathroom. Same routine as always. Shower, coffee, 20 minutes on makeup and hair. The woman I'd married, the mother of my daughter, the person I'd trusted with everything I had, the person who'd been planning my disposal like a corporate merger. I might be late again tonight, she called from the bathroom. The Morrison case is heating up. I bet it is. She poked her head out, toothbrush in her mouth. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that you've been putting in a lot of hours. She rinsed and spat. That's what success looks like, Danny. Some of us can't just coast on natural talent. Coast. Like 23 years of building a business from nothing was coasting. Like working with my hands in all weather while she sat in climate-controlled offices was somehow less valuable. I smiled. You're right. I'm lucky to have such a driven wife. She kissed me goodbye, and I tasted mint and lies. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and made a list. Not a revenge list. Not yet. Just facts. Things I knew and things I needed to find out. Jennifer was having an affair with Brad Morrison. They were planning a divorce. They thought I was a loser who wouldn't see it coming. They were wrong about that last part. My phone rang. Lisa. Danny, we need to talk. I think we covered everything last night. Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain. I almost hung up. Then I realized Lisa might know things about Brad that could be useful later. Fine, 5 minutes. Not over the phone. Meet me at Rosie's diner in an hour. Rosie's was the kind of place where the coffee was strong, the eggs were greasy, and the waitresses had been there since the Carter administration. I found Lisa in a corner booth, looking like she'd slept about as well as I had. You look terrible, I said, sliding in across from her. Thanks. You're really good for a girl's self-esteem. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. Danny, I'm sorry. About last night. About the text. About all of it. Which part are you sorry about? The fake hospital story or the cheating? Both. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I never meant for it to happen. Brad and I met at that law firm party last month, and he was charming and successful and not a grease monkey. She flinched. I never said that. But you thought it. No. Maybe. I don't know. She pushed eggs around on her plate. He made me feel special, Important, like I was dating someone who mattered. And I don't matter. You matter, but you're... She struggled for the words. You're comfortable, safe. Brad is exciting. Exciting enough to fake a mental health crisis for? That was his idea. He said if I made you feel guilty enough, you'd leave Jennifer faster. I set down my coffee cup carefully. Excuse me? He said you were planning to leave your wife anyway, that you just needed a push. The words hung in the air, sharp and cold. The pieces clicked together like tumblers in a lock. Brad hadn't just been stealing my girlfriend. He'd been using her to manipulate me, to speed up whatever timeline he and Jennifer had worked out, playing both sides like a pro. Lisa, what else did Brad tell you about my marriage? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Just that you were unhappy, she replied, glancing down at her hands, her voice wavering. That Jennifer was cold and focused on her career, that you deserved someone who appreciated you. Classic. The playbook was so familiar, so predictable. Feed the girlfriend just enough truth to make her complicit in breaking up the marriage. Meanwhile, tell the wife her husband is a failure, a burden she has to carry. Work both ends toward the middle, the whole time manipulating them into believing they were in control. Did he ever mention divorce specifically? I pressed. She hesitated, her eyes darting around, as though trying to decide how much to reveal. He said... She trailed off for a moment, gathering her thoughts. He said Jennifer was already talking to lawyers, that it was just a matter of time. I felt a cold wave of realization wash over me. Jennifer was further along in this process than I had realized. Talking to lawyers. Divorce wasn't just an idea anymore. It was happening. It meant paperwork, financial planning, asset division. It meant I was already playing catch-up, and I needed to act fast to protect myself. I paid for breakfast, leaving a tip that didn't match the tension in my gut, and stood up to walk out without saying goodbye. Lisa called my name as I headed for the door, but I didn't stop. I couldn't afford to. I was already 3 steps ahead in my mind, planning my next move. Jennifer was talking to lawyers. The clock was ticking, and I needed to be ready for whatever was coming. I had no illusions anymore. This wasn't about saving my marriage. It was about ensuring I didn't lose everything in the process. I drove to the marina, trying to focus on the work at hand. Boats didn't care about your personal drama. They either ran or they didn't. That was a comforting thought, at least for a few minutes. But the phone in my pocket buzzed again, and I found myself staring at it, lost in those damn text messages from Jennifer. Guy's a loser. I've outgrown him. He's so clueless. Each message was a reminder of how much I had been deceived. I couldn't ignore it anymore. This was all part of the plan, and it was happening whether I was ready for it or not. Around noon, Tommy showed up with lunch, his face betraying the guilt he was trying so hard to hide. Danny, we need to talk, he said, setting the bag down on the workbench in front of me. Tommy and I had been friends since high school. We'd built this marina repair business together from the ground up, turning it into something respectable, something we could both be proud of. He was the closest thing I had to a brother. But I could see from the way he was standing there, shifting on his feet, that he had something heavy to drop on me. Let me guess, I said, keeping my tone even. Jennifer made you an offer. Tommy winced, but his expression hardened. He knew there was no point in pretending. She did, he admitted, and I took it. I didn't want to, but she said it was better for the business, better for both of us. The words felt like a punch to the gut, but I couldn't let it show. I couldn't afford to lose control, not yet. You're really going to go through with this? I asked, my voice low but steady. You know what she's doing, right? What this is really about? Tommy shifted uncomfortably, but his eyes met mine, and I could see the regret in them. I didn't know everything, Danny. I swear. She made it sound like it was just business, but now I'm seeing it all. And I'm sorry. I leaned against the workbench, trying to gather my thoughts. Jennifer had already spun her web, and now Tommy was caught in it. But I wasn't about to let her or Brad walk away unscathed. Not while I still had a chance to turn this around. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Tommy," I said, my voice hardening. "You're in this deep now. You've got a choice to make. Stick with her, or you start making things right." Tommy's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "What do you want me to do?" "Start by telling me everything, every damn thing you know, and then we'll figure out what comes next." His face went pale. "How did you—" "Because I'm not as clueless as everyone thinks." I wiped my hands on a rag. "What did she offer you?" "Danny, I didn't want to get in the middle of this." "You're already in the middle. What did she offer?" He sat down heavily on an overturned crate. "She said you were planning to leave town, that you wanted out of the business. She offered to buy your half at fair market value." "And you believed her?" "She's your wife, man. Why would she lie?" "Good question." I looked around the marina. Boats in various stages of repair, tools I'd collected over decades, the life I'd built one day at a time. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it." "Danny, if you want out, we can work something." "I don't want out. Jennifer wants me out. There's a difference." I explained about the affair, the text messages, the fake hospital emergency. Tommy's face went through the same progression of emotions I'd experienced: disbelief, anger, and finally a kind of grim understanding. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." I picked up a wrench and turned it over in my hands. But I'm done being the clueless grease monkey. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private investigator. Jake Morrison, no relation to Brad, was an ex-cop who'd started his own agency after taking early retirement. His office was above a pizza shop downtown, and he looked exactly like what you'd expect from a guy who'd spent 30 years dealing with the worst humanity had to offer. "Cheating spouse?" he asked after I'd explained the situation. "Among other things, I need to know what I'm dealing with. Finances, legal preparations, how long this has been going on." "Standard rate is $500 a day plus expenses." I wrote him a check. "How long?" "Give me a week. Maybe less if they're not being careful." They're not. That evening, Jennifer came home at her usual time, 7:30, just late enough to avoid helping with dinner, but early enough to maintain the illusion of a normal marriage. I had been expecting her, but the weight of it still hit me every time she walked through the door, her steps light, her smile just a little too practiced. "How was your day?" she asked, leaning in to kiss my cheek in that way she'd always done. Affectionate but distant enough to make it feel almost mechanical. "Productive," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Tommy and I were talking about expanding the business." "That's nice." She didn't really engage with the topic. Instead, her hand was already reaching for her phone, her attention slipping away before the words had even settled between us. She was scrolling through messages as she spoke. "Danny, we should probably talk about finances soon. Make sure we're on the same page about retirement planning." "Retirement planning?" I repeated, my brow furrowing as the words hit me like a cold slap. "Well, you're not getting any younger," she said, her eyes still glued to her phone. "And this job is hard on your body. Maybe it's time to think about what comes next." What comes next? The words lingered in the air like a judgment, as if I was just another aging racehorse being put out to pasture. "I love my job, Jennifer," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I loved it, not just the work itself, but the rhythm of it, the way it grounded me in something real. "I know you do," she said with a dismissive tone, not looking up from her screen, "but love doesn't pay for college tuition or medical bills." Her fingers moved faster over the phone, the words tumbling out, practiced, smooth. "I've been thinking we should meet with a financial planner, someone who can help us make smart decisions about the future." "Our future?" I asked, suddenly aware of the sharp edge beneath her words. "Of course our future. Whose future would I be talking about?" I watched her, watching the careful calculation in her eyes as she lied to me. It wasn't the first time, but tonight it felt different, colder, more deliberate, smooth and professional, like she was negotiating a business contract rather than discussing the future of the life we'd built together. Maybe that's all it was to her, a business transaction that needed to be handled efficiently, with minimal emotion and maximum strategy. "That sounds like a good idea," I said, keeping my tone measured, my face blank. "When were you thinking?" "Soon," she replied, her attention flickering back to her phone. "I'll set something up." Her phone buzzed then, and she glanced at it, her eyes lighting up with something I hadn't seen all evening, a genuine expression, a smile that wasn't for me. "I need to take this," she said, her voice already shifting into something warmer. "Work call." I nodded, but inside, I felt something shift, something darker creeping in. She disappeared into her office, her voice muffled through the thin walls. It wasn't the words that struck me, but the tone, the intimacy, the warmth, the way she used to talk to me. "I missed you too." "No, he doesn't suspect anything. Soon, I promise." The air around me thickened as I stood there, the weight of it sinking in. She didn't care about our future. She was building her own, one where I had no place. I stood in the hallway and listened to my wife make plans for a life that didn't include me. 23 years of marriage, and it had come down to this, eavesdropping on my own irrelevance. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you room to maneuver. I went to my workshop in the garage and started making plans of my own. Jake Morrison called me 3 days later with news that was somehow worse than I'd expected. "Your wife's been busy," he said. "The affair's been going on for 8 months. They've been meeting at the Oceanview Resort twice a week, sometimes more. She's already filed preliminary divorce papers. No fault, citing irreconcilable differences." I sat in my truck outside the marina, watching seagulls fight over a discarded sandwich. "What about finances?" "She's been moving money, small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up. About 40,000 so far, transferred to an account in her name only." 40,000. Our emergency fund, our vacation savings, the money we'd set aside for our daughter's wedding someday. "There's more," Jake continued. "She's been documenting what she calls erratic behavior on your part. Late nights, mood swings, drinking." "I don't drink." "I know. But she's building a case, probably trying to establish grounds for getting a bigger share of the assets." I thought about the nights I'd worked late at the marina, the times I'd come home tired and covered in grease, the beer I'd have with dinner while she sipped wine and talked about her cases. "What about Brad?" "Interesting story there. Guy's got gambling debts. Owes about 60 grand to some people you don't want to owe money to. Your wife's been helping him pay it off. With our money." "Looks that way. Danny, there's something else. Your daughter's involved." My stomach dropped. "How?" "Social media posts. She's been sharing stories about family problems, how her dad's been acting strange lately. Nothing specific, but enough to support your wife's narrative." "Emma, my 20-year-old daughter, home from college for the summer, posting our private business online for her friends to dissect and judge." "Send me everything," I said. "Photos, documents, bank records, all of it." "What are you planning?" "I'm planning to stop being the victim." That night, I confronted Emma. She was in her room, laptop open, probably posting more details about her dysfunctional family to whatever social media platform was popular this week. "We need to talk." She looked up with the expression of someone who'd been caught but wasn't ready to admit it. "About what?" "About the posts you've been making. About our family." "I don't know what you mean." I sat down on her bed and pulled out my phone, scrolling to the screenshots Jake had sent me. "Dad's been acting weird lately. Think my parents are having problems. Family drama is so exhausting." Her face went red. "Those are private posts." "Nothing's private online, Emma. You know that." I set the phone down between us. Why are you doing this? Because it's true. You have been acting weird. Mom's stressed all the time. The house feels like a war zone. So you decided to share that with the internet? I share everything online. It's called being authentic. Authentic. I almost laughed. My daughter thought broadcasting our problems to strangers was authentic, while her mother was planning to destroy our family and steal our money. Emma, what has your mother told you about our marriage? She shifted uncomfortably. Nothing specific. Just that you guys are going through a rough patch. A rough patch. She said you've been distant, that you're not happy with your life choices, that you blame her for your problems. More lies, carefully crafted to turn my own daughter against me. I wondered how long Jennifer had been planting these seeds, how many conversations they'd had about my supposed failures as a husband and father. What do you think? I asked. Do I seem unhappy to you? I don't know. Maybe. You work all the time. You never talk about anything except boats and business. When's the last time you and Mom went on a date? When's the last time she wasn't working late? Emma looked away. That's not fair. Mom's career is important. And mine isn't? It's different. Mom's a lawyer. She's making a difference in the world. You fix boats. There it was. The attitude Jennifer had been cultivating, the slow erosion of respect that had turned my own daughter into a stranger. Emma, those boats I fix? They belong to people who work hard for their money. Fishermen trying to feed their families. Weekend warriors who saved up all year for a vacation with their kids. When their engines break down, I'm the guy who gets them back on the water. That might not change the world, but it matters. I know it matters. I didn't mean, yes, you did, and that's okay. But before you post any more family business online, maybe ask yourself who benefits from making your father look bad. I left her staring at her laptop screen, hopefully thinking about things she'd never considered before. The next morning, I put my plan into motion. First stop, Jennifer's law firm. I walked through the sleek downtown office building with the air of someone who belonged there, moving past the marble lobby and the security desk, more a formality than any real protection. Jennifer's assistant, Carol, was always friendly, and over the years I'd made an effort to be friendly in return. I brought her cookies at Christmas, remembered her grandchildren's names, little things that made her smile and kept the relationship pleasant. Danny! What a nice surprise, Carol said when she spotted me. Jennifer's in court this morning. Actually, I was hoping to catch Brad Morrison. Is he around? I asked, my tone casual. Carol's face softened for a split second. Oh, Brad's not here anymore. He transferred to the Portland office last week. Last week, earlier than Jennifer had told me. That was odd, especially given how much time Jennifer had spent with him recently. I couldn't help but wonder what had prompted the abrupt move. That's too bad, I said, feigning disappointment. I wanted to thank him for all his help with Jennifer's cases. Carol's expression shifted, just slightly, but it was enough for me to notice. Well, he certainly spent a lot of time helping her. They worked very closely together. Her words were weighted, and the way she said it told me everything I needed to know. Carol may have been an assistant, but she wasn't blind. Office gossip travels fast, and Carol had eyes. I'm sure they did, I said, keeping my voice steady. Hey, could you do me a favor? Jennifer mentioned meeting with the financial planner next week, but she forgot to give me the details. Carol's brow furrowed, confusion flashing across her face. Financial planner? I don't have anything like that on her calendar. Maybe she's handling it herself. You know how independent she is, I suggested, trying to keep the conversation light. That's true. She's been very independent lately. Her words lingered in the air, and I knew I had my answer. Jennifer wasn't planning to meet with a financial planner. She was planning to present me with divorce papers, and the separation would be swift and clean. A fait accompli. Thanks, Carol. I appreciate it, I said, keeping my smile in place as I made my exit. Each piece of the puzzle was falling into place, and the more I learned, the clearer my path became. Next stop, the Oceanview Resort. The desk clerk at the resort was young, eager to please, and completely unaware of what was about to unfold. I approached the counter, trying to maintain an easygoing demeanor. I pulled out a photo of Jennifer and Brad together, a candid shot I'd taken that night at the hotel, and slid it across the counter. "I'm trying to surprise my wife for our anniversary," I said. "She mentioned staying here with her sister last month, and I wanted to book the same room." "Oh, how sweet," the clerk exclaimed. "Let me check our records." His fingers danced over the keyboard as he searched the system. "Here we are, Mrs. Jennifer Walsh and guest, room 714. They've stayed with us several times, actually. Lovely couple." Lovely couple. The words stung, but I kept my smile in place, nodding along. "Could I book that same room for next weekend?" "Absolutely. It's our premium ocean view suite. Very romantic." I nodded again, pretending to admire the idea of it all. "Perfect. I'll take it." I paid with cash, careful to pocket the receipt. Room 714 was going to play a pivotal role in my plans. This was the room where their affair had begun, and where their lies had been woven together. It would be the stage for the final act of my revenge. That afternoon, I visited my lawyer, not the family attorney Jennifer and I had used for routine matters, but a divorce specialist recommended by Jake Morrison. Patricia Chen was sharp, aggressive, and expensive. Her office walls were covered with degrees and awards, and she had the kind of confidence that came from winning more battles than she'd lost. "Your wife's been planning this for months," she said after reviewing Jake's report. "The good news is she's been sloppy, moving marital assets without disclosure, using joint funds for personal expenses, documenting false claims about your behavior." "What can we do?" "We can make her life very difficult. But Danny, I have to ask, what's your end game here? Do you want to save the marriage or win the divorce?" I thought about Jennifer's laugh when she talked to Brad, the way she'd called me clueless, the months of lies and manipulation. "I want to win." "Good, because nice guys finish last in divorce court." Patricia outlined a strategy that was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting Jennifer directly, we'd let her continue digging her own grave. Meanwhile, we'd gather evidence, protect assets, and prepare for war. "The key is timing," Patricia explained. "She thinks she's controlling the narrative, but we're going to flip the script. When we're ready, we'll hit her with everything at once: fraud charges, adultery evidence, financial misconduct. She won't know what hit her." I left Patricia's office feeling something I hadn't felt in months: hope. That evening, Jennifer came home early for once. She found me in the kitchen, making dinner like nothing had changed. "Smells good," she said, wrapping her arms around me from behind. I tensed at her touch, but forced myself to relax. "Thought I'd try that new recipe you mentioned." "You're sweet." She kissed my neck, and I wondered if she felt anything at all, or if this was just part of the performance. "Danny, I've been thinking about what you said, about us spending more time together." "Yeah? Maybe we should plan a getaway. Just the two of us. Reconnect." I turned around to face her. She looked beautiful, hair perfect, makeup flawless, smile bright, and false as a politician's promise. "Where did you have in mind?" "I don't know. Somewhere romantic. Maybe that place up the coast. What's it called? The Oceanview Resort?" The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted to take me to the same hotel where she'd been meeting her lover, probably to the same room where they'd planned my disposal. "That sounds perfect," I said. "When were you thinking?" "Next weekend? I could clear my schedule." "I'd love that." She smiled and kissed me, and I kissed her back, tasting lies and betrayal and 23 years of wasted trust. But here's what Jennifer didn't know. I'd already booked room 714 for next weekend, and I had plans for that romantic getaway that would give us both memories to last a lifetime. The week crawled by like a wounded animal. Jennifer played the role of devoted wife with Oscar-worthy commitment, bringing me coffee in the morning, asking about my day, even suggesting we watch a movie together on Thursday night. I played along, matching her performance with one of my own. The loving husband, grateful for this second chance, excited about our romantic weekend. If she noticed the edge in my voice or the way I watched her when she thought I wasn't looking, she didn't let on. Friday afternoon, Jake Morrison called with the final pieces of the puzzle. Your wife's been busy this week. 3 phone calls to a divorce attorney in Portland. Not the one she filed preliminary papers with. This one specializes in high-asset cases. She's upgrading her legal team. Looks that way. There's more. She's been in contact with a private investigator of her own, probably trying to dig up dirt on you to strengthen her case. I almost laughed. What kind of dirt could she possibly find? That's not the point. The point is, she's playing hardball while pretending to reconcile. Danny, whatever you're planning for this weekend, be careful. This woman's not just cheating on you, she's actively trying to destroy you. I thanked Jake and hung up, then called Patricia Chen. Everything's in place, she said. The moment you give me the signal, we'll file our own papers and freeze the joint accounts. But are you sure about this weekend? It feels risky. Risk is the point. Jennifer thinks she's in control because she's been setting the agenda. Time to change that. Just remember, document everything. Photos, recordings if possible. And Danny, don't do anything that could be construed as threatening or violent. We need you to be the victim here, not the aggressor. That evening, Jennifer packed for our weekend getaway with the enthusiasm of someone planning a funeral. Her own, as it turned out. I'm so glad we're doing this, she said, folding clothes into her expensive suitcase. I feel like we've been ships passing in the night lately. Whose fault is that? She looked up sharply. What do you mean? Nothing. Just that we've both been busy. Work, responsibilities. It happens. It does happen. But that's why weekends like this are important. Time to remember what we mean to each other. What we mean to each other? I wondered if she practiced these lines in front of a mirror. Saturday morning, we drove up the coast in Jennifer's BMW. She'd insisted on driving, which was fine with me. It gave me time to think and to watch the scenery roll by. The same route I'd taken that night, I discovered Lisa and Brad together. Beautiful day, Jennifer said, making conversation. Perfect weather for revelations. What? I said perfect weather for relaxation. The Oceanview Resort looked different in the harsh light of day. Less enchanting, more like what it truly was. A luxurious playground for the rich and uninformed. The sprawling complex, nestled on the edge of the coast, was exactly the kind of place people with more money than sense flocked to, eager to escape their realities. Jennifer breezed through check-in, her confidence betraying the fact that she'd done this countless times before. Mr. and Mrs. Walsh, she said to the desk clerk with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. We have a reservation. Of course, room 714, our premium ocean view suite. You've stayed with us before, haven't you, Mrs. Walsh? Her smile faltered, just for a second. I don't think so. This is our first time here. The clerk, looking momentarily puzzled, didn't press the issue. My mistake. I hope you have a lovely weekend. In the elevator, Jennifer grew unusually quiet. I could almost hear the cogs turning in her head, trying to figure out how the desk clerk could have recognized her. It was a brief but telling crack in her composed facade. Room 714 was just as I remembered, opulent, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering an unobstructed view of the ocean. The bed was king-size, large enough to swallow anyone who lay in it. A chilled bottle of champagne sat waiting in an ice bucket, untouched and inviting. It was the same room where she and Brad had carefully plotted my downfall, where every conversation had been a whisper of betrayal. This is nice, I said, walking over to the window, my fingers brushing the cold glass. Great view, It is, Jennifer replied absently, eyeing the champagne. I didn't order this. Maybe it's complimentary, for first-time guests. She relaxed slightly, though I could still sense the tension in her shoulders. That must be it. I unpacked quietly while she disappeared into the bathroom to freshen up, setting my phone to record. I knew the stakes, and Patricia had made it crystal clear. I needed evidence. I was going to get it, and I would leave nothing to chance. When Jennifer emerged, she had changed into a sleek black dress I didn't recognize. Expensive, elegant, the kind of dress she wore to impress people who mattered, people she needed to notice her. It wasn't the kind of thing she'd wear for me. You look beautiful, I said, my voice betraying none of the resentment simmering just beneath the surface. Thank you. She glanced at me briefly before turning her attention back to her appearance. I thought we could have dinner at that new restaurant in town, the one with the Michelin star. Sounds expensive, I remarked, not missing a beat. We can afford it. Besides, when's the last time we splurged on ourselves? She countered, her eyes glinting with the suggestion that it was somehow our right to indulge. When's the last time you splurged on us? I thought bitterly, but I held my tongue, giving her only a faint nod. You're right. We deserve it. Dinner was a master class in awkwardness, laced with loaded silences and careful avoidance. Jennifer ordered the most expensive wine on the menu, her choice deliberate, her tone casual, but I knew what she was doing. She was playing the part of the perfect wife, pretending that everything was fine, that nothing had happened. Her conversation veered from topic to topic, dancing around the one subject that was still too raw to mention. Brad, her lover, the emergency she'd been so deeply wrapped up in. I noticed how she avoided any mention of him, as if he were a ghost in the room. Her attempts at small talk about work, about trivial matters, only served to highlight how deep the fissure between us had become. Over dessert, she let the silence linger for a moment, and then, as if she'd decided it was time to begin the next phase of her act, she spoke. I've been thinking, she said, her voice dropping to a more serious tone, about what you said, about expanding the business. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my face neutral. Oh? Yeah, she continued, stirring her dessert absent-mindedly. I think it's a good idea. There's a lot of potential in it, a lot of untapped markets, and with the right push, we could really grow. Her words felt like a performance, as though she were trying to reintroduce herself into my good graces by focusing on something we could build together. But I knew the truth. She was trying to steer the conversation away from the hard truths she no longer wanted to face, as if expanding a business could somehow erase the cracks in the foundation of our marriage. Maybe, I said, leaning back in my chair, my gaze fixed on her with quiet intensity. But what's it really about, Jen? What are you really thinking? What about it? Maybe it's not the right time. The economy's uncertain, and expansion requires capital we might need for other things. Other things, like divorce lawyers and new apartments and paying off her lover's gambling debts. What kind of other things? Just, life changes. You never know what's around the corner. I raised my wine glass. To life changes. She clinked her glass against mine, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Not guilt exactly, but a kind of sadness. Maybe she did feel something about what she was doing. Maybe destroying a 23-year marriage wasn't as easy as she'd thought it would be. Then the moment passed, and she was back to playing her role. We walked back to the hotel along the beach, waves crashing against the shore in the darkness. Jennifer took my arm, and we could have been any middle-aged couple trying to recapture something they'd lost. Danny, she said as we reached the hotel, there's something I need to tell you. My heart rate spiked. This was it, the moment she'd planned, the big revelation that would set her narrative in motion. What is it? I haven't been completely honest with you lately. About what? We were in the elevator now, alone except for the security camera in the corner. Jennifer looked at herself in the mirrored walls, checking her appearance one last time before the performance of her life. About work. About how I've been spending my time. The elevator opened at the 7th floor. We walked to room 714 in silence, and I used the key card to let us in. The champagne was still there, along with fresh roses I definitely hadn't ordered. Jennifer saw the roses and went very still. "Those weren't here before," she said. "Maybe housekeeping left them." "Danny." Her voice was different now, strained. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." She sat on the edge of the bed, looking more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. "I've been having an affair." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I sat down across from her, making sure my phone was still recording. "With who?" "Brad Morrison, from my firm." "How long?" 8 months. She was crying now, tears running down her cheeks and smearing her makeup. "I never meant for it to happen. It just did. Just happened. Like a car accident. I know how that sounds. But Danny, we've been growing apart for years. You have to admit that." "Have we?" "Yes. We want different things. We become different people." "What do you want, Jennifer?" She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I want a divorce." There it was. The truth, finally, laid out between us like a weapon. "I see. And Brad?" "He's part of my life now." "I'm sorry, Danny. I know this hurts, but I can't pretend anymore." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ocean. The same ocean I'd looked at from this room months ago, when I'd discovered Lisa's betrayal. Funny how life had a way of bringing you full circle. "Danny? Say something." I turned back to her. "What do you want me to say? Congratulations? Good luck? Thanks for 23 years of marriage and have a nice life?" "I want you to understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording. "You've been planning this for months, moving our money, building a case against me, turning our daughter against me. You've been documenting my supposed erratic behavior while you've been stealing from our joint accounts to pay off your lover's gambling debts." Her face went white. "How do you know about all of it?" "Because I'm not the clueless grease monkey you think I am." I showed her the photos Jake had taken, the bank records, the evidence of her affair. Her expression cycled through shock, fear, and finally, anger. "You had me investigated?" "I had us investigated. Turns out there was a lot to find." She stood up, her vulnerability replaced by the cold professionalism I knew so well. "Fine. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. I'll take you for everything you have." "With what? Falsified evidence of erratic behavior? Good luck proving that in court when I have recordings of you confessing to adultery and financial fraud." "You recorded me?" "I recorded us. Having an honest conversation for the first time in months." Jennifer looked around the room, at the roses, the champagne, the bed where she'd betrayed our marriage. Understanding dawned on her face. "This is the room. You knew I'd been here before. Room 714. You and Brad have excellent taste. Expensive taste." "You bastard." "Careful, Jennifer. Remember what Patricia said about documentation." "Patricia?" "My lawyer. She's very good, much better than the hack you filed preliminary papers with." Jennifer sank back onto the bed, the fight going out of her like air from a punctured tire. "What do you want?" "I want what you wanted, a divorce, but we're going to do it my way, with my timeline, and with the truth on the table." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Jennifer? Brad's not in Portland because of a transfer. He's there because his bookie was getting impatient about that $60,000 he owes. Might want to ask him about that before you make any long-term plans." I left her sitting in room 714, surrounded by the ruins of her carefully constructed lies, and drove home through the darkness. The war was just beginning, but the first battle was mine. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, The kind of weather that made the whole town look like it was dissolving at the edges. I was at the marina by 6, working on a stubborn outboard that had been giving me trouble for weeks. Sometimes the best therapy is the simple satisfaction of fixing something that's broken. My phone rang at 7:30. Jennifer. We need to talk. I thought we covered everything Saturday night. Danny, please, can we at least try to handle this like adults? Adults. There was that word again. What did you have in mind? Meet me for coffee, neutral ground, 1 hour. I found her at Rosie's Diner, the same place I'd met Lisa a week ago. Jennifer looked like she'd aged 5 years over the weekend. Dark circles under her eyes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. This was what defeat looked like on someone who wasn't used to losing. You look terrible, I said, sliding into the booth across from her. Thanks. You always know just what to say. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. Danny, I want to apologize. For which part? All of it. The affair, the lies, the way I've treated you. I know I've hurt you, and I'm sorry. I studied her face, looking for signs of sincerity. Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught? Both, I guess. She almost smiled. You really did surprise me. I never thought you'd hire a private investigator. I never thought I'd need to. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the diner's morning rhythm, coffee percolating, eggs sizzling, the low murmur of conversation from the other booths. What happens now? Jennifer asked. That depends. What do you want to happen? I want to minimize the damage. To both of us. To Emma. Can we agree on that? Define, minimize. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. I had my lawyer draw up a settlement proposal. 50-50 split of assets, joint custody of Emma even though she's an adult, no alimony either way. I flipped through the papers. It was generous, more generous than she had any right to be, given the circumstances. What about the $40,000 you moved? I'll return it. All of it. And Brad's gambling debts? Her face tightened. That's between Brad and his creditors. So you're cutting him loose? Brad and I... That's complicated. I leaned back in the booth. Jennifer, let me explain something to you. You don't get to have it both ways anymore. You don't get to keep your lover and get a clean divorce. You don't get to steal our money and then negotiate like you're doing me a favor by giving it back. What do you want? I want you to understand that you're not in control anymore. I am. I pulled out my own folder, thicker than hers, full of photographs and bank records and recorded conversations. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign a confession admitting to adultery and financial misconduct. You're going to return every penny you stole, plus interest. You're going to publicly apologize to Emma for manipulating her. And you're going to accept a settlement that reflects the fact that you're the party at fault here. And if I don't? Then I release everything to the State Bar Association, your law firm, and Emma's social media accounts. Let's see how your career survives when everyone knows you're a cheating thief who used stolen money to pay off your lover's gambling debts. Jennifer stared at the evidence spread across the table. You've really thought this through. I had a lot of time to think while you were planning my destruction. I never wanted to destroy you. No? What would you call it? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I felt trapped, in our marriage, in this town, in a life that felt too small for who I thought I was supposed to be. So you decided to blow it all up. I decided to take control of my own happiness. At my expense. Yes. She looked up at me with something that might have been respect. I underestimated you. I thought you'd just accept it, roll over and let it happen. The clueless grease monkey. I never should have said that, but you meant it. Maybe, at the time. She gathered up the papers I'd shown her. Danny, what if I told you there was a way we could both get what we want? I'm listening. You want revenge. I want out. What if we staged something public? Something that would humiliate me but give you the satisfaction of winning? I almost laughed. Even now, even caught red-handed with evidence of her betrayal, Jennifer was trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. What did you have in mind? The Founders' Day festival is next weekend. Half the town will be there. What if you confronted me publicly? Made a scene? I could play the role of the guilty wife, you could be the wronged husband. Everyone gets what they want. Except, that would be another performance, another lie. It would be the truth, just choreographed. I considered her proposal. There was a certain appeal to the idea of public vindication, of letting the whole town see who Jennifer really was, but it felt hollow, scripted. No, I said finally. If I'm going to humiliate you, it's going to be real, not some staged drama for the entertainment of people we'll never see again. Then what? I stood up and dropped a 10 on the table. Then you're going to find out what happens when someone underestimates the clueless grease monkey. That afternoon, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. First, I called Emma. She was back at college, probably posting about her parents' drama to her online followers. Dad, is everything okay? Emma, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. How much did your mother tell you about our marriage problems? I don't know. Some stuff. Why? What kind of stuff? There was a long pause. She said you were going through a midlife crisis, that you were angry about your career, about not being more successful. She said you blamed her for holding you back. More lies, carefully crafted to turn my daughter against me. Emma, did she mention that she's been having an affair? What? No. Dad, that's not. For 8 months. With a colleague from her firm. She's been using our money to pay off his gambling debts. That's not possible. I have evidence. Photos, bank records, recorded confessions. Emma, your mother has been lying to both of us. I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth, and because I need you to understand that the posts you've been making online, the things you've been saying about our family, they've been based on lies. Oh God. Dad, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I know you didn't. But Emma, I need you to stop posting about us. Can you do that? Yes, of course. Dad, what's going to happen? Your mother and I are getting divorced, but that doesn't change how much I love you. I love you too. After I hung up, I called Patricia Chen. It's time, I said. You're sure? I'm sure. Then let's burn it all down. Tuesday morning, Patricia filed our divorce papers. By noon, all of Jennifer's assets were frozen pending a full financial audit. By evening, the State Bar Association had opened an investigation into her professional conduct. Wednesday, Jennifer's law firm placed her on administrative leave. The local newspaper ran a story about a prominent attorney under investigation for ethics violations. Thursday, Brad Morrison was arrested in Portland for failing to pay gambling debts. The story made the evening news. Friday afternoon, Jennifer called me one last time. You've destroyed everything, she said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I've revealed everything. There's a difference. My career is over. My reputation is ruined. Even Emma won't talk to me. Emma will come around. Eventually, if you're honest with her. Honest. That's rich, coming from you. How do you figure? You pretended to love me while you were planning this whole thing. How is that different from what I did? I did love you. Right up until the moment I realized you'd never loved me. That's not true. Isn't it? When did you stop seeing me as a person and start seeing me as an obstacle? She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. I don't know, she said finally. Somewhere along the way I forgot who you were. Who we were. Yeah. You did. Danny? What? For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix what you broke. Saturday morning arrived, and the Founders' Day festival kicked off under a flawless, clear blue sky. The streets of town were alive with excitement, a sea of families, elderly couples, and teenagers in search of something to occupy their time. I wasn't there. Instead, I spent my day at the marina, surrounded by the familiar sounds of tools clinking and the steady hum of the water. Boats, both old and new, needed work, and I focused on the task at hand, all while my mind wandered, contemplating the uncertain future ahead. My phone buzzed incessantly, calls from reporters, lawyers, and neighbors, each eager for a tidbit of gossip. I let them all ring through to voicemail. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Tommy appeared on the dock, a six-pack of beer in hand and a look on his face that said he wasn't here for small talk. "Heard about Jennifer," he said, his voice serious. "Yeah," I replied quietly, the weight of the conversation pulling at me. "You okay?" Tommy asked, his concern genuine. "Getting there." We both sat on the dock in silence, watching the sun dip beneath the horizon. The sound of seagulls overhead was accompanied by the faint music and laughter from the festival in the distance. It was a strange contrast, the joy of others clashing with the quiet heaviness of my own thoughts. "What's next?" Tommy asked after a while, his voice breaking the stillness. "I don't know. Keep fixing boats, I guess. Figure out what 43 looks like when you're starting over." Tommy's voice was calm but firm. "You're not starting over. You're continuing. There's a difference." I turned to him skeptically. "Is there?" "Hell yes. Starting over means you lost everything. You didn't lose everything. You lost a wife who didn't deserve you, and you gained the knowledge that you're tougher than you thought." I opened the beer Tommy handed me and took a long, thoughtful swig. "When did you become so philosophical?" "When my best friend turned into a badass overnight," he said, a grin tugging at his lips. We both laughed, and for a moment it felt like I could breathe again, like the world wasn't just a series of struggles. It was the first real, unburdened moment of emotion I'd felt in months. My phone buzzed again, a text message from an unknown number. "You won. Congratulations. I hope it was worth it. Jennifer." The words were as cold and final as I expected. I imagined her somewhere, probably in a new place, using a new phone, trying to stitch together a life after the wreckage of our marriage. I wondered where she was, what she was doing, how long it would take her to rebuild. I deleted the message without responding. There was nothing left to say. As the last of the sunlight slipped below the horizon, the first stars began to twinkle faintly in the sky. From behind us, the sounds of the festival still carried: laughter, music, the celebration of life, of joy, of being. I wasn't ready to celebrate yet. Maybe I never would be. But for the first time in what felt like ages, I felt something resembling peace. The war was over. I had won. And for the first time in a long time, I was free.